Assalamu alaikum, my name is Yusuf, a professional chef and graduate from culinary school. These days I spend my time teaching people how to cook online. Made Halal is a series brought to Freshly Grounded where we take foods from around the world that might not necessarily be halal and we give them to you made halal. We're switching it up this week on Made Halal. I had no idea what was going on. The boys just told me to come down, no ingredients, nothing, just my equipment, and they're going to set me a challenge that I had to complete. Here's how it went down.
So Kareem and I had a deliberation, and we decided that with it being lockdown, the day of the week of lockdown, in fact, as this video will come out, will be the first day of lockdown. So we wanted to make a lockdown edition. So your task and challenge that Kareem and I have set is that you have to make something, anything, but it's savoury, not dessert, not pastry, out of whatever you find in my kitchen.
Including the baby food?
You can use anything you find.
Okay, cool.
So you have full permission to use whatever you want. Any thing from the fridge, freezer, pantry, snacks. Just don't touch the cake that's for the guests. And the reason obviously we came up with this is because like last lockdown, I think people came up with some really cool recipes because they kind of like looked at things that they had in the house and wanted to make the most use of it rather than going out unnecessarily.
Right.
And so with that kind of in mind,
So you're talking about like the dal that's at the back of the cupboard and stuff like
yeah,
that?
we're talking about the dal in the back of the cupboard. We're talking about like
just buried there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds
So
good.
that's your task.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Cool.
I can see where we're going somewhere. Should I just grab like a cow bowl? Do you have any lime juice? Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna add a wacky ingredient in there, just to add that little shebang. Okay. So basically, I've totally gone through every drawer that you had, and I'm gonna come up with sort of like, well, it's not really a burrito as such, but it's somewhere along that line. So we have our chicken breast here, which you had in the fridge. I'm gonna season it with some salt. We've got some cumin, some chili powder, garlic, and I'm also gonna add a bit of a twist and use some cocoa powder. I actually like seasoning with cocoa powder. It's got that bitter sort of sweetness. It's gonna add a bit more complexity. So even though it's just like a kitchen ingredient that you just had lying around that you probably only use for baking, I'm actually gonna use this to season the chicken. Obviously we have our wraps that it's going to go in. I also found some microwave rice that you had. I normally make the rice fresh, just to clarify, but in the theme of this lockdown meal we're using some microwave rice. And then I'm going to make a basic salsa. It's not really a salsa as such. Wait, do you have fresh tomatoes? No, I don't think you do actually. That's cool, that's cool. So we're going to make a sort of salsa using this Cholula hot sauce. Which is like a Mexican sort of hot sauce, which is quite on brand with what we're doing here. A red bell pepper, an onion, we have some lemon juice as well, and I'll probably put a dash of salt and maybe some oil in it as well, and we'll just sprinkle that over the top to give like a tangy sort of kick to our sort of spicy kind of chicken. So yeah, let's make it. So first things first, I'm gonna deal with our raw meat. So I took my chicken and I've removed any excess bits of fat and whatnot. If you like to wash your chicken at this point, go ahead and do that. And I prepared my seasoning mix. Now what I did was combine salt, cumin powder, chili powder, some garlic, mixing that in with some tomato paste and some cocoa powder. Now I know what you're thinking, Yusuf, this is not a dessert. What on earth is cocoa powder doing in chicken? Well, this is actually something that I add to my chicken seasoning quite often. It gives a really nice depth of flavor. It's not sweet if you think about it. The cocoa powder has that bitter raw chocolate flavor and that really brings out a smokiness when you cook it. So I added that in as well and I mixed it together to make a really nice thick paste. I coated it on my chicken and I know what you're thinking. It doesn't look like an awful lot of seasoning, but this is something that is a really sort of little amount of seasoning that will go a long way. Once I covered my chicken with the marinade, I put it onto a tray and stuck it in the oven at 200 degrees, letting that cook for about, say, 15 minutes. And while that was cooking, I went ahead and prepared my sort of raw salsa. What I did was take the top off an onion, halving it, peeling it, and making some really fine cuts all the way across it, down to the root but not cutting through. I then made a couple cuts along it, and then finally chopped it into really small pieces. I don't need to get that sort of chunky onion texture. It should be nice and fine but give you that nice crunch. Then I took a red bell pepper and I cut it in a way where I was sort of carving around it, making sure to get as much of the sort of flesh as possible. And once it was off, I sliced it really thinly and then chopped it into fine pieces to match the onion. Now in terms of seasoning the salsa, normally I put fresh chilies in, but you know, I had to make do with what we had. We had some Mexican sauce actually, which was really good. So I dashed a bit of that in And I found some lemon juice in one of the cupboards and I put some of that in as well, along with a nice pinch of salt. This is going to give us a really sort of nice, bright, vibrant, sort of really simple salsa. Now for our last part, which is a big no-no in the chef community, I use microwave rice. I know it's a bit crazy, but I thought, you know what, why not? It's there, let's just use it. Once the chicken was out, I let it rest for a bit so that it could become nice and relaxed and tender in the center. And I sliced it at an angle and I took my tortilla wraps and placed it directly onto the flame so that it can get nice and sort of crispy and get that nice charred flavor. And then I just layered the whole thing up together. I put the rice at the base, I put the sliced chicken on top, and then I topped the whole thing off with a generous amount of our sort of spicy and tangy salsa. And yeah, that's basically my lockdown challenge complete. How do you think I did? If there's something that you think you could have done with those ingredients, let us know in the comments below. And here's how it tasted. Alright, bismillah, this is huge. I remember Kareem said how small my bite was for the Big Mac, so that was a bigger bite there. But yeah, this is it's really nice actually. It's smoky. It's got that spice to it. It's got the zing from that sort of raw salsa kind of adaptation that we made. It's just really it's really good to be honest. Considering we made it from all the stuff that we just found and I had no idea we had this challenge until I found out. I think it did really well. I think we did really well.